Yes, so thank you. I'm Ludovic Dubust. I'm going to talk about displaying other application data in a wiki and other types of integration. First, who am I? So I'm a creator of Xwiki. I'm running Xwiki SIS. We're a company of 40 people working on open source full time. I'm an open source contributor and also a promoter. Xwiki SIS also works on CryptPad, which is another software, open source software that you can check out. We had a presentation before about it. So we've been working full-time on open source for 15 years now. So I've personally worked on many Xwiki projects. So I passed the development of the core Xwiki software to a team, and so but I'm getting involved more in the client using, or the users using Xwiki. And I'm working on trying to have open source a bit everywhere, either in our company or also personally. And so that's not so simple, and I'm working on it. So what is actually Xwiki? So Xwiki is a professional wiki. The X in Xwiki means extended. So it's an extended wiki. It has many advanced features for content editing. It also, and one of the key things is that it integrates a scripting language and a method to structure data. And it has many macros. So I won't go too much in the structuration of data in Xwiki. Actually, there is a presentation by Anka in an hour, I think, that will talk more about about the engine and everything it can do. But so in Xwiki, you have the ability to structure data and create like databases that you can then talk to using a scripting language. Here, I will more talk about how we can integrate other tools. So we have also a system to do macros. So when we're in the WYSIWYG, we can insert macros. I'll show that in some demos. So actually, why talk about integrations? Well, the thing is, everybody uses lots of tools, whether on the internet or in our company. We have tons of different tools. And so when we look at it, information, it can come from many places and have also different forms. So the goal of Xwiki is to help people manage information and organize information. And so we provide a lot of tools to manage the information that we put in Xwiki, but there is no reason not to be interested also to manage information that is outside the wiki. And also information that would be in formats that are more complex than the standard features of the wiki. So text or structured data that are standard features of Xwiki. We want to also display data that could have different ways to be displayed. And so wikis are really great to organize content. This is why it's really interesting to try to see how we can integrate data from outside. And another aspect is that if you actually, when you have information in many places, one of the difficulties that happen is that it's hard for people to understand that information. So, I mean, let's say we have a link where there is some statistics. The problem is that there is the statistics, but there is no explanation about the statistics. And the wikis are great places to put explanation. So if we bring the information, the statistical information from the other tool inside a wiki, we can actually explain the information next to the statistics. So now how do we make integrations in Xwiki? So we can either use existing macros and extensions. We can embed HTML. We can embed JavaScript tools. We can write our own scripts to call local or remote APIs. We can write our own macros. And we can do advanced integration using listeners. So I'll try to show a bit of everything. So first, using existing macros and extensions. So for example, Jira Macros, video macros, diagrams, Kanban, U-Bot, or Elasticsearch. So we have a bunch of macros in Xwiki. So I'll show some of them. So for example, if I go here, up, it's actually not here, up. So this is an Xwiki instance on my computer. And if I, I will go to Jira, for example. So here I can show, good demo effect, superb. I lost the internet, good.
You can see the wonderful error messages.
Yeah, so Jira is not on my computer, so no, fail. Nice, good failure. So that's going to be tough, so not everything will work in my demos. Try again.
So use my internet maybe. I think it's better.
T'as pris? T'as quoi?
Sputnik.
Sputnik, where is Sputnik?
It's not yet. Just fetch.
No. Non, c'est pas ça, c'est surtout que j'ai pas le temps.
Cherche Sputnik.
Et
Comme d'habitude.
c'est quoi? Try again. I should have tested white before. Aha, might work, yes. Okay, so if we can talk to the Jira server, so we have Jira Macros, we can show the tasks that are done or not done, we can show them at lists, we can make a Jira query actually. So if I look at the code in Xwiki, we have a Jira macro, and we can use that macro to display data. So that's one example. We can also have, so actually, this is a macro that we use internally at Xwiki. It's not published. We can actually even do charts. So it takes a bit more time. Let's hope it's fast enough. No, doesn't want to come. Yeah, I should have tested how long it took to run the macros. So this is live data, as you can see, because it's really interesting data. So here we can see a graph of the Xwiki development cycle, version 10. Who has done what? So we can make a chart directly from Xwiki with data coming from Jira. So potentially you can do the same thing, like calling a database, getting data, and then giving it to a chart in Xwiki that would graph the chart. Here another graph, another type of graph that you can do. So we have a bunch of macros like that. For example, here a matrix macro, which actually just allows to embed the chat in a page. So I took a chat room, and if it loads, so it loads on the internet again, because this is running our own matrix server here, and it will show matrix chat live on the internet that I created for this. So I will pass a bit on this, on these macros. Let's go to the next type of example. In the meantime, it might load. Up. Oops. No, it's here. Sorry, I need to speed up now. Okay. Another type of things, we can embed HTML. So the matrix chat is an example, but I can also embed a PeerTube video or even a CryptPad video. Actually, this document here, this CryptPad is actually coming from there. It's actually, I put it here directly inside the wiki page, and I put a link, view full screen. So I can run the presentation directly. So this is a CryptPad presentation that is on the CryptPad server and is embedded on my page. Actually, if I look at the code, this is just done with a bit of iframe HTML embedding. So embedding HTML and other tools. We can do that with PeerTube here. That's another example of integration. I can show a video. That's actually a FOSDEM presentation from last year. And I can run that presentation, that video directly. So I can do that type of things. Now, oops, I need to go back to my presentation now. Hup. And the next step is, okay, I can embed HTML, that's fairly easy. Now, can I embed actually JavaScript code? So, hup. And if I go back, here I have, by the way, my FOSDEM demo chat embedded in my page. So now JavaScript embedding. So actually, here I want to show, so this is actually an embedding of a GraphWiz JavaScript library. Here is the code. Here I have my code. This is defining my graph. And this is the JavaScript code, the JavaScript library that is transforming this to a graph with JavaScript embedding. So in Xwiki, we can embed some JavaScript here, just like that. We can run JavaScript code and make it transform some data. So I transform this data into JavaScript. Now the thing is, we actually, here we have the same, exactly the same thing, but the difference is that instead of running JavaScript code from the internet, it's actually running JavaScript code that is actually installed in Xwiki. So these are APIs in Xwiki, which allows to talk to JavaScript modules that we have installed with the Xwiki extension manager. So Xwiki can install extensions, and we can actually install any Maven extension from the Maven repository. And this is a library, this.js, the library that we can get from the Maven repository. So it's JavaScript code in a zip file, and we install it. And when it's installed, we can use it. So here, I don't need the internet anymore for that, that viewing. And so what is interesting is that once I did that embedding, I can actually make a macro. So here, I've transformed my code to a macro. And now, the same code that was before is executed by the macro. And I have a macro, I can put any graph, and I can have a different view here, up, and any GraphWiz view. And we can also do this, for example, with a timeline. So here, this is actually JavaScript code, which allows to view timelines. So actually, we can even move them because it's editable. This JavaScript allows to edit. And so the tool doesn't save, so it cannot save right now, but we could improve it so that it would save the result of this configuration on the JavaScript module inside Xwiki, instead of just, this is the one that we're loading. So this is JSON here, and then the JavaScript code is after that to load the thing. So we can, this type of things we can transform to macros inside Xwiki so that it would display. Go back to the presentation. So now writing script with local APIs. So I wanted to show another type of integration. Here, I have some ASCII art. So this is actually Java code. So here, this code here, I installed from the extension repository of Xwiki. I installed the Figlet Java module in Xwiki, just with the administration. And then I could use some Groovy to actually convert this to a Figlet, so to a little display here. So I can actually say, it's cool. And I have changed my thing. Same thing, we can transform this to a macro. FOSDEM is really cool and can display. So I wanted to point out that most of these things here, have been done pretty quickly. So taking a Java module and inserting in Xwiki. Another example is working with an API, so embedding data from outside. So here, I go back, and now I have a demo with NASA. So I need the internet for this, and I have a picture, the astronomy picture of the day, and with the explanation. So I can actually code it, look at this. And this is basically a bit of code to display, to call the NASA API to get a picture and display it in Xwiki. So not only I can actually get the picture of the day, but I can actually get the one from yesterday, or the one from the day before. And the day before.
It's a rabbit hole, don't go on it, please.
Yeah. This one is very nice. Actually, they're pretty amazing. Yeah.
That's why we keep on looking previous.
Yeah. And so, up. Actually, we can do that in JavaScript. We can also do that in Velocity. So, actually, I have both in my demo. I have a JavaScript version up, and this is the JavaScript version of the API. So this one also has next, previous. Actually, previous, up, the same thing. But it's implemented in JavaScript instead of being implemented in server-side. So you can do both. So I'm going to speed up a bit because I have a bit more. It's not finished of things what we do. We can write our own macros. So actually, I showed that. I want to very quickly show how you actually do that. So here, if I take my macro, my graph with macro, this is what I had to do to write the macro. Up. I had to move this code to an Xwiki object, and then it's a macro in Xwiki available everywhere. So it was actually just moving the code in a specific area in Xwiki, and we have a macro that's available to everybody. You can do that as an admin, of course, not as a standard user. So I move the code, and here, this is how I get the parameters that I use in my macro instead of actually passing the data right away. And then, okay, now I'm going to a bit more advanced thing. So one of the things I prepared for this demo is an integration of Xwiki with Elasticsearch. And so what I did is I created an application in Xwiki, which is a database of countries. So here I have 264 countries, so I didn't type it myself. I imported it from a World Bank data. So I created some CSV files using the World Bank service. I imported the data in Xwiki. So I imported the list of the countries, and I imported the list of the data of every year. So for example, if I say France here, I can see the data for France for every year, population, GDP, GDP per capita, etc., etc. And so what is interesting is that if I go to countries now, actually, so not only I imported the data, but I wrote a listener that is actually pushing the data, storing it in Xwiki, and pushing the data to an Elasticsearch instance. So who knows Elasticsearch here? Yeah. So it's pushing the data using Elasticsearch. Was not a lot of code to do that, to push the data. And then in Elasticsearch, I created some graphs. And this is a graph from Elasticsearch that is embedded in the wiki. And it shows all the indicators for France that are stored in my wiki and pushed to Elasticsearch. So this graph was made in Elasticsearch. So actually here, this is the Kibana instance. And I can actually view the data from the wiki. So for example, here I can see the GDP per country, for example, or things like that in Elasticsearch. And when I do these graphs that I did, I used the code of the graph and embedded it in Xwiki. So, and the last thing I did is here you have a dashboard, World Bank dashboard, which contains a graph of every country here, of everything. So you can see the GDP of the United States going very high. And actually, you can see in Xwiki, here, my dashboard embedded in Xwiki. It's here. And so now if I go to show you that it's actually real, I can take that data here, and I can also go here and take France data. And so here you can see my graph that should load. So here you can see some data here that is 31, okay? Everybody sees its value is 31, okay?
Make it go up because
okay.
going down is not cool.
No, actually it needs to go down, no? To be better. It's a Gini, it's an inequality index.
Okay. Make it go down.
It's better when it's down. Well, it depends what you believe.
Make it 0.
So here I save my page in the wiki, and actually I can reload the page now. And that was, yeah, oh, and it's 25. Magic. So the data was pushed to Elasticsearch, and the graph was put up to date. So actually here, I can edit, and I can change. If I want to see another country instead, I can do that. And there I can show another country directly from the wiki. That's it for demos of integration in Xwiki.